Hi, this is Steve Kaufman again, and today I have a special guest. Very special because she's not the usual sort of just language learning type of person. Joe Franco has a channel on YouTube where she talks about many things, including language learning, but also things of the heart. And so I'm going to talk to her about attitude and language learning, and she's also a polyglot. So we'll get into all of this, but first, remember, if you enjoy my channel, please subscribe. If you listen to me in a podcast service, please leave a comment. Hello, Joe.
Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. First of all, where are you located geographically?
Currently geographically based in London,
Uh-huh.
strategic partially for language learning, the other
Right.
travel, which to me
Uh-huh.
goes hand in hand. And
Right.
language has always been the biggest gateway to experiencing the most authentic, life-enriching moments of my life. And so I figured, hey, London is pretty much the most international city in the world. So
Right.
every day here, I'm like ordering a coffee in Italian, I'm ordering lunch in French, I'm
Right.
speaking Portuguese at the gym, and that's only in a day's time. So it's really exciting.
Right. You say, and of course, obviously I agree with you that actually I don't need these now. I've got everything working. Um, that language is a gateway to so much, and some people think, oh, I got to learn it. Why would you learn some other language? All you need is English. And so some people have a very sort of utilitarian approach to language, like I only learn something if I need it. In fact, until you get into it, you don't realize just how rich a world is available to you if you learn languages. So tell us, which languages do you speak, and what have been some of your pleasant experiences in these languages?
Great question. And I mean, we could talk about this for the rest of time. It's an endless pool. Like you really can just keep going for life. And obviously you've shown that through your
Hmm.
work. But in my experience, so I actually never was supposed to speak English. I was born in Brazil. So 100% brasileira, 100% Brazilian.
Wow.
And no one in my family was American. So the fact that we immigrated when I was 5 years old was kind of a shock to everyone.
Mhm. Right,
So from
right.
Brazil, speaking Portuguese, I moved to a town in Connecticut. I had to learn English. No one spoke Portuguese around me. They barely even spoke Spanish. So that was actually a really big moment in my language learning career. And I feel like
Right,
I've
right.
tried to replicate as much of that survival mentality to my language learning because I learned English in record speeds because I had
Hmm.
to. I had no other
Hmm.
choice. And so I spoke, obviously, I speak English. That's my main language day to day and how I kind of think. Then I started learning French in middle school, which it's middle school French. You're not going to be fluent from that. But I
Far
really
from
loved
it.
it.
Far from
I
it.
just loved it. I fell in love with the little pictures of the cafes in the textbooks. And I'm like, man, maybe one day I can be a person sitting at one of those cafes. I don't know what it was. There was just something about the European cafe lifestyle that I was obsessed with before I even drank coffee. And then in high school, I was very privileged to be in a high school where they taught Italian as well. So I had to write a letter to the principal and say, hey, I grew up bilingual. Can you please let me take two languages in school, which was something that was not allowed. They didn't want the kids getting confused. So I broke the rules, very in line with me as a human being, and I started learning Italian. And all of these are kind of grade school, elementary school classes, not learning too much. But then I graduated and I had never traveled, by the way. I could
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
travel. We were undocumented for 12 years. So all of this time growing up,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's a pretty crazy story. I
Right.
was in preparation. I was like in the books doing my little grammar tables because one day I would live a global life. That was in my mind. I didn't
Hmm.
even have a green card, let alone a
Hmm.
passport. So this was all in my mind. But right before college, I was able to get my green card, applied to a college in Manhattan, and went to this school downtown Manhattan where I knew it would be a global experience.
Can I stop you for a sec? Because you said a few things that I want to comment on before I forget. Now, at my advanced age, I forget things very easily. You said that you arrived in the US at the age of 5. I arrived in Canada at the age of 5. I have no recollection of transitioning from Swedish to English. I was just with, I don't know what language I spoke when I, first, played with kids, but in no time I'd forgotten my Swedish and I just spoke English. So at the age of 5, we transitioned very, very quickly. That was one thing I wanted to say. What was the other thing about? Oh, yes. It's interesting that at school they tell you how many languages and which languages you can learn. That's so silly. They should allow kids to explore whatever language they want to explore. So there was something else that I wanted to comment on, but I've forgotten. So here we are. You're in college. So take us to the next stage.
We're going to talk about this on my podcast too, this
Hmm.
whole
Hmm.
transitioning in the brain and growing up bilingual. So, got to college and I didn't take any French classes in college at all. Maybe I did half of a semester,
Hmm.
but I didn't love it.
Hmm.
Didn't like the teacher, didn't like the lessons. I just didn't, I'm not very much of a rule follower, right? So, the idea
Hmm.
that I'm sitting in this
Hmm.
classroom where people were just trying to fulfill some language credits, it was BS in my opinion.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
didn't really love that, but I still decided to study abroad in Paris my sophomore
Hmm.
year, which
Hmm.
is when my French really went to the next level
For sure, I can
because
imagine. Yeah.
I was living in a homestay with this mom who spoke no English, and that's what I wanted. I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
struggle, like take me
Right.
back to survival mode. And at the same time, I started this crazy YouTube channel with my friend from college where we were just documenting our French experiences, traveling around, taking cheap flights. To me it was also foreign, for lack of a better word. Like I didn't grow up traveling, so I wanted to film everything. People ask like, oh, why are you so enthusiastic? That's one of the first things you said to me. And it's because I guess everything that happened in my life is so crazy that I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I have to film this because I might never be able to do it again, but it became my career.
Can I stop you here before I forget 2 points that I want to make, and then we'll continue? So now I remember what I wanted to say. You said that you had these textbooks, French textbooks with pictures of cafes. I got turned on to French at McGill University because we had these textbooks, and I got turned on to these pictures of, 17th and 18th century French people and whatever. So it doesn't matter what it is, but you contrast the role of a teacher or a textbook that can actually turn someone onto the language. You contrast that with writing exams every year, which is what you experienced, what I experienced. And if you're a good student, you're going to pass these exams. You're going to get 8 out of 10 or whatever it might be, and you still can't speak. So you've got, on the one hand, the role of the teacher is not to teach something and test the student on it, and the better students get better marks, and the weaker students get poorer marks. It doesn't matter. The role is to sort of trigger this enthusiasm, which I think we both have enthusiasm for discovery, for languages, and so forth. So I wanted to make those 2 comments. Back to you now. So you're traveling and you're enthusiastic.
An amazing point to make, because when you think about language learning, those are hours of your life. That's so much
Hmm.
dedication. You could be doing so many other things. So if you're going to dedicate time, you need to be excited about it. There's a
Right.
reason why people are kind of downloading these apps and they're like, oh yeah, I kind of want to learn it. But what's the reason why? Like what are you obsessed about with that language
Hmm.
or with that
Hmm.
idea of your life transforming because you learn that language? And that to me was always the why was like,
Right.
if I learn this language I can live a different life, and
Right.
that's so powerful in my opinion,
Hmm.
that it would get me excited about doing grammar charts or whatever, but like doing the grammar for grammar's sake is not what I'm going to be spending my time on.
No.
So I love that. Yeah, you pointed that out. It's true, it's got to be something
Hmm.
that you're passionate about, and a teacher, they can point you in the right directions, but really that's an individual experience.
Right.
So for all of my languages, for the most part, it was
Hmm.
the culture excited me. It was the
Right.
access that I would get because I would speak this language and unlock things. So that's kind of how I learned French, not perfected, but like really got fluent
Yeah.
enough where I can
Right.
do life in French. And then
Hmm.
Italian, same thing. I actually loved the fact that Italian was only spoken in Italy for the most part because
Hmm.
it was not really useful. And that was exciting to me because I'm like, oh, I'm
Hmm.
only learning this language because I
Right.
love Italy and Italians. And
Hmm.
that feels sacred and special.
Hmm.
Whereas the other languages, like Spanish, they always say, oh, we got to learn Spanish. I actually avoided learning Spanish for the longest time.
Hmm.
Funny enough, I'm like, I don't want to learn it because I speak Portuguese. I can already kind of understand it. But joke was on me because when I got back from my study abroad semester, the first project that we were able to go on and work to make promotional YouTube videos for was a Spanish language school. So for 3 months, I literally had to go to Spanish school. And in that summer, I learned Spanish. So that's when
Hmm.
Spanish kind of added into the mix.
Stop you there because I have a question. I have found it very difficult. My Spanish is much better than my Portuguese. And the languages are so similar. They're like 90% the same words, 90% the same grammar, of course, different pronunciation. And I find it so difficult. Like if I learn a totally different language, then there's no interference. But it's so difficult to get out of this portuñol thing into that other language, and you got to shut out the one that you speak better. So coming at it from Portuguese, was that an obstacle for you? The fact that basically you understand it, you even know you can communicate in Portuguese and they'll understand you. Does that prevent you from throwing yourself into Spanish?
It's such an amazing question. It was traumatic the first week in Mexico. I was like wanting to bite my tongue every 5 seconds because I'm like, what is it? Para por, what is it? Is it el? Is it le? Like I was just losing my mind because it wasn't just Portuguese that was interfering, but it was Italian
Right.
as well. To
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
me,
for sure.
anytime I speak Spanish, I'm basically speaking Italian null, like it's Spanish with Italian. In the
Hmm.
beginning, it was definitely Portuguese seeping into my Spanish. And then I did have to block it out. You have to kind of like find a way to isolate
Right.
the language in your brain, which is funny because now after many years of speaking those languages, and I started making videos in those languages, which really, really helped. So
Hmm.
on the old YouTube channel, which we had over 1 million subscribers, we would
Wow.
post 3 videos a week, Tuesdays in English, Fridays in French, Sundays in Portuguese. And then
Hmm.
I would travel alone and go to Italy and make videos in Italian. And so this kind of went on where I was not only filming myself for a whole day speaking a language, but editing myself and having
Hmm.
to look up, like, is that even right? Is that how you say that? And it's
Oh,
a
I've been through
secret
that.
weapon. It's a secret weapon, Steve, where I'm like, okay, there's
Absolutely.
some magic that happens when you start filming yourself. And it's
Absolutely.
convenient that this is what I ended up doing for a living. So this brings us to now. I
Right.
stopped actively learning languages for a long time, right? Like I think all of those
Hmm.
languages were in my mind by the age of
Hmm.
24. I didn't have to do
Right.
much work. You know how it is. You go through ebbs and
You're
flows.
already 24?
I'm 29. I'm 29. But as I was 24,
Yeah.
these languages were in my mind.
Right.
And I didn't really make the time to learn new languages because I was
Hmm.
getting around most of the world with no issues. Like I would be in Hungary, and of course I didn't speak Hungarian, but the woman I'd be like, do you speak English? No. Do you speak French? No. Do you speak Portuguese? No. Do you speak Spanish? No. Do you speak Italian? Perfetto. Quindi dobbiamo, and it was amazing. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
I don't necessarily spend much time learning new languages. I'm maintaining the ones that I know. Then something really interesting happened last year during the pandemic, where it was the first time in a long time I wasn't traveling. And I was kind of bummed in quarantine like the rest of the world. And
Hmm.
I realized, like, I am so sad. The only thing that's going to make me excited is going to be learning a new language. And so I had flirted around with Egyptian Arabic. My best friend is Egyptian. And I just
Hmm.
decided I'm going to book 20 hours of classes online with this complete stranger who turned into a dear friend who lives
Hmm.
in Egypt. And every day of last year, like for the first 2 months, I would meet up with him online, 45-minute lessons. And I started learning Egyptian Arabic to the point where I'm
Hmm.
like, "كله تمام أنا كويسة قوي الحمد لله." Like, and I started communicating with my best friend and her
Hmm.
family, who I had known for 10 years. And that opened up this new Egyptian Arabic door. And at the same time, I had dabbled in Greek. I'm like, oh yeah, Milau Ligo, Elinika, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm like, I know that if I dedicate my time to this language, to both of these languages, I will be able to be more conversational. And so I just started posting more content about it on my Instagram. So I
Hmm.
used to be primarily on YouTube. Now I've shifted. I'm definitely on both. And I started this 21-day language challenge. We're on day 17 today. And on Instagram, every single day, I post a video of me reading an entry in Greek
Hmm.
and posing my audience the same question in whatever their language, their target language is. And that's
Hmm.
improved my Greek tenfold, like in these short 3 weeks. I'm like, shoot, this is what happens when you dedicate some time and energy into these languages. You open these doors. So that's
Right.
my linguistic journey.
Okay, so because we're going to have another conversation on your channel, I'd like to sort of summarize and maybe make some comments for the purpose of my listeners and what I get from our conversation. I share some of the problems you have. In other words, I would like to learn 100 languages. There's only so much time in the day, and we're always conscious of some of the languages we have learned are not as good as they once were, or we'd like to be better at them, and we just don't have the time to do it. So, it's like everything about language learning. There is no perfection. You can't learn every language to a super level. It's fun to explore new languages. And so that's a good problem to have. So that's the one thing. We're quite similar in that regard. The second thing is your enthusiasm. And I think, to be successful in anything, not just language learning, you have to be passionate about it. You have to be enthusiastic about it. That enthusiasm partly comes from within, but also I think it's a matter of being open to new stimulus, new opportunities. And so that sometimes the trigger can come from somewhere else, like it could be a textbook, as in your case. But I think you're a wonderful example. And of course, you're a lot younger than I am, so you can still learn a whole bunch of languages. And I think it's just, if we can infect more people with that enthusiasm and that attitude, more people will, benefit from the joys of learning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many languages they want, for whatever reason that they're interested. And so, I thank you for sharing that joy with the people who follow my channel. Maybe you want to give us a final comment.
I mean, Steve, I think you're a perfect example. You have that joy as well. It's infectious, and it says a lot that you've dedicated your life to inspiring other people to learn languages and learning languages yourself. I mean, to me, it's a gateway to living multiple lives. I always say that. I'm like,
Yes,
why live one life when you can live many, many, many more? There are people in my
exactly.
life who I would have not met, nor would have never, become friends with if I didn't speak French or Italian or whatever, like there's such a missed opportunity when we don't spend time trying to understand one another. It's like, yeah, sure, we have translations, we have all of these,
Right.
services, but there's nothing that beats that human connection when you look at someone in their eyes and speak their language and understand them in their
Yeah,
language. And if I
absolutely.
can really put in more time and energy into that, I feel like my life will be a million times more fulfilling.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you for taking the time to visit with us, and I look forward to our next conversation at your channel.
So excited.
Okay.
We're going to get into it.
Thank
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, bye bye.